What is going on, guys, and welcome to my new video. And this is going to be a solo Kalphite King guide. I did promise this video quite a while ago, and since the release of the tier 90 defenders I've been soloing a bit more, so I thought it was about time that I put this guide out. This first bit is just going to be covering gear and inventory, and then we'll move on to the actual kill itself. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too long going over gear and inventory because you can basically see what I'm wearing on the screen at the moment. But I will just mention a few sort of key points that you should, or key things that you should take with you. So first off, I would highly recommend that you are on Slayer task when soloing Kalphite King. It just makes the kill so much smoother and so much easier with that extra accuracy and damage. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I would also recommend that you have the Keris dagger and the Desert Amulet, at least three or four Desert Amulet, because this provides a damage and an accuracy boost against Kalphites, I believe. Another couple of things to know: I would highly recommend a Ring of Death, because if learning KK, you will most likely die a few times, so that will just save you a bit of money reclaiming from death. And I would also recommend to start off with, like, you can use, I don't tend to use a necklace switch anymore, but for Mage Phase, the Farsight Blood Necklace can actually be quite helpful because it will heal you a decent amount during the Mage Phase, especially if you're not particularly sort of used to prayer flicking and stuff like that. I would highly recommend using that. So a quick overview is just that you need basically a range DPS switch and a melee DPS switch. Definitely want to use a Noxious Longbow or a Longbow over two-handed weapons, because the Kalphite King is weak to bolts, it's weak to arrows, not bolts, so your accuracy is much higher with the Noxious Longbow over Ascensions, for example. Also highly recommend that you take a Ring of Vigor switch and Adrenaline Potions to build that adrenaline nice and quick after ultimates, and a Weapon Poison will definitely help you out. What you can do to save an inventory spot is sip the Weapon Poison at the bank, because it lasts for 10 minutes, and then add in an extra food there if you are low on food. 2 brews restore, and then I don't know if I mentioned this, Summoning Pot, if you're comfortable with using it and replacing sort of a food with it, it will mean your Steel Titan does more specs. So as far as Familiar goes, if you find yourself struggling on how much food you're using, then you can take a Yak with you, but once you get the rotations down, you will be able to use an offensive Familiar. So I would recommend taking Steel Titan. I found that does the most damage, especially on Mage Phase. It just absolutely shreks it. Some people also take Blood in the Hills for the melee accuracy, and then Scrimshaws. You can take Scrimshaw of Cruelty, which is what I take, but I haven't really been using it recently. And then as far as auras go, range accuracy aura isn't really needed, so no point really taking Sharpshooter. The only thing I would really take is either this Majorat aura if you have the Premier package. It does 5% more damage, which is quite nice. Or the Brawler aura, which gives you a bit of melee accuracy, so like Supreme Brawler would be good to take. Don't forget your Ancient Defender if you're after the Kalphite Defender drop, or the Perfect Chitin drop. Okay, so I'm not going to go over which abilities to have on your bar, but I will post 2 screenshots of the ability bar that I use for for range and melee on the screen now. And then just quickly, I'm going to go over how the guide works. So I'm not going to particularly do a full kill and explain what I'm doing, because each kill can differ quite a lot depending on what the Kalphite King does. Like his ability rotation stays the same, but it can start at different points depending on where the phase changes and stuff like that, which can make each kill unique. So I'm going to go over all of the situations that you may find yourself in and how to deal with that, so that you don't get greened, so that you can try and skip digs, and so you can do the most damage possible. So we'll jump into sort of the start now, which is the 3 different spawns that you can get. Okay, so the first spawn that you can get is the melee form, so the yellow wings. If you see this, you just want to teleport out of there or exit the room if you don't have max cape, and re-enter, because you don't want to start on a melee form. So the next spawn that you can get is the mage spawn, so weak to range, and the blue wings, and you basically want to tag it with 1 auto attack and then use anticipation. Then the second attack that KK does is going to be the blue ball, but your anticipation will have prevented the stun, and then you can just whack on your mage prayer to halve the damage. And then you should be using bleeds at the start of this phase and walking underneath KK, just a little bit at a time, because this stores its attacks, which means you can build your adrenaline to thresholds a bit quicker. Once you get to your thresholds like Snapshot and save your rapid fire, but Snapshot and Tendrils, use those nice and quickly. And then on the 4th hit, you're going to want to use Binding Shot, because this will prevent the dig. After you've stunned it, KK is going to do its double ball attack, and this hits through prayer, 100% damage, and just you really want to avoid that. It's going to do really high damage. Then it's going to do one more attack, and then it will blue ball you again, so make sure you have anticipation used before that third attack. After the blue ball, it will be charged, so make sure you get out of the way of the charge attack. And then after 2 more attacks from Kalphite King, you're going to want to stun it again to avoid the next dig. Okay, so now that you've done quite a lot of damage to Kalphite King, it's probably going to spawn the first set of minions soon, so it is a good idea to let the Kalphite King dig, because this means that you can now lure it over to the east wall, which is where you want to keep it for the rest of the kill. So once it does its next dig, just surge over to that east wall, and then you'll be in position for the rest of the kill. Okay, so the final spawn that you can get is the range spawn, so the green wings, weak to melee. So again, you want to tag it and use anticipation. This is because the first attack that it uses is binding shot, and you'll get stunned if you don't anticipate it. And then you need to build, swap into your melee gear if you're in your range gear like I am here, and build your adrenaline using basics. Now to stall the Kalphite King's attacks again, you can walk underneath it. So what the Kalphite King does at the start of this phase is it does 2 attacks, and then there's like a brief pause, and then it does 2 more attacks. So on that 4th attack, you need to make sure that you have 50% adrenaline so that you can use destroy. On that 4th attack, you have to use destroy, because this will mean that the Kalphite King will be stunned and it will skip its green attack. So on that 4th hit, that is what you have to do that, otherwise you're going to get greened. Once you use destroy, only allow it to do 2 hits. If you do any more than 2 hits, the Kalphite King will double dig. So do 2 hits and then cancel it. And use freedom. This is because the next one is going to be incendiary shot. If you're quick enough, you can swap to your defender and use resonance, and then this is when the Kalphite King is going to dig. So as the same with the range phase, you're going to want to surge over to that east wall and build your adrenaline as much as you can using defensives, but save anticipation. When the Kalphite King pops up, you should be very close to 100% adrenaline, if not 100%. So build to 100 and berserk with your Ring of Vigor, and drink replenishment pots straight away. And then build your adrenaline using basics. Once you get over that 50% threshold, use anticipation, and then go into assault. And then you need to also be counting the Kalphite King hits at the same time. So it's going to be the same as at the start. So 1, 2, pause, and then 3 and 4. On 4, you have to use destroy again to skip the green. And what I like to do is I like to use all 4 destroy hits so that I get the maximum damage, even though it does cause the Kalphite King to double dig. Now what you need to watch out for is that destroy is going to activate incendiary shot again, and you need to be careful because your Zerks obviously is going to take more damage, and it can also stack hits on you. You can get hit really high, so just make sure you eat up your decent amount of life points when that incendiary shot actually hits you. Okay, so the most difficult situation that you're going to find yourself in is when the Kalphite King changes from either mage or range phase into the melee phase. And this is because you basically have to be out of combat with the Kalphite King for long enough to force a change phase. And when it forces the change phase, it'll heal 26,000 life points. But you have to time it right so that you attack it just after it heals the 26k. Otherwise, it'll just keep on repeatedly healing. But also, if you don't, then you're going to get greened. So what you have to do is, when it changes phase, you attack the Kalphite King in the melee form, swap into your melee gear, and just basically wait out its attacks. It will do slaughter, which you need to freedom, because it can hit as high as like 2k through prayer. It's absolutely awful sometimes, that slaughter. And then when it does dismember, that's when its next attack will be charge. And what you do is, when it charges, you surge away from it to the other side of the room. Now positioning of where you are and where Kalphite King is key. So you have to make sure the space behind you for the Kalphite King to charge into you. So as you can see on the screen, where I am is the sort of the correct position to be in. Around that position is where you want it to be, so that the Kalphite King charges up and down the east wall. And then as you surge away, run to the wall and call your familiar. At this point, you're going to want to wait for about 5 to 7 seconds and then run back towards the Kalphite King to get its attention. Now this is where it gets difficult. So you want to change your prayers to range prayer and anticipate, and then you're going to want to run away from the Kalphite King until it changes phases. Now, if it changes to mage phase, just keep running. You don't have to do anything. If you attack it when it changes mage phase, it can heal twice. So try not to attack it. However, if it changes into the range phase, you need to attack it straight away. And its first shot will be binding shot, which is why you use anticipation. And then you have to use destroy on that second. The second after it does binding shot, otherwise you're going to get greened. So that is the most difficult bit about soloing Kalphite King. So the final situation you're probably going to find yourself in that is difficult is when Kalphite King changes from the mage to range phase. And the only thing difficult about this is that his first shot is going to be binding shot, so you have to freedom that bind, and then just swap into your melee gear and start building up your adrenaline on Kalphite King. Now, the difficult thing here is keeping track of the count. So the first, on the phase change, is going to attack you, so that's the count of 1, and it can be easy to miss that. The way I remember it is that when it's pausing, I know that it's 2 more hits until I have to use Destroy, but wait until that 4th hit and then use Destroy. Build your adrenaline to full after that Destroy if you can. A handy hint is that you can use, so after Destroy it has Incendiary Shot, which can hit really high and stack hits on you, so Devotion, that's a really good time to use Devotion. And then once it's done its dig, you can build your adrenaline on the minions or with defensives, and then just go into the normal Zerk Adren Pot rotation. Now, if you've already used your Adren Pot, you can Zerk, but you won't have, so if you do that, what you need to do is build to 50% after the Zerk, and then use Destroy first on the 4th hit. Don't use your Assault, otherwise you won't have enough adrenaline to skip the phase. So the final thing I'll show you is what happens when you're too far away from KK. When it phase changes into the range phase, you won't be able to get to it in time before it greens you, and so the best way, or the only way, to escape this green is to spam freedom, and then as soon as that ability activates, click your teleport out of there, and you should be able to escape the green 1 hit. Okay, so the final clip I'm going to play is just a normal kill, complete. It was quite a good kill. It was about 3 minutes, three and a half minutes. So just so you can see what it's like in real time, and whilst it's playing in the background, I'll just go over the final few tips that I have. So the minions spawn at 75 and 25% life points. Now the problem with the minion spawn is that it stuns you, but it also stuns the Kalphite King. So for example, if it stuns the Kalphite King whilst it's in range phase, it can skip an attack, which can make you lose count. So for example, if it spawns on the Kalphite King's, if the minions spawn on the Kalphite King's 3rd attack, that attack may not happen and it'll go straight to the 4th. But if you don't realise that, you'll think it's the 3rd attack and won't use Destroy. So you have to keep an eye out for minions stunning and skipping attacks, so that you know, so that you don't lose count. A handy hint for healing is that when the minions spawn, you can use Sacrifice on them when they're low HP and get like a nice 1000 heal off that. And the reason that we stay on the east side of the room is that the majority of the minions spawn on the west side. So if you stay on the east, on the first wave you'll only have to deal with 1 minion, and the second wave you have to deal with 2. It makes it much easier than having to deal with all the minions. It also saves you Slayer count, which is great. So I think that's all of the tips I can think of. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, and I'll be sure to put out more high-level PvM boss guides. Last thing I want to say is thank you very much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll pop some music on over the top whilst this kill ends.